The courtroom had seen arrogance before, but nothing quite like this. Karen Delgado, 44 years old, walked into the world of small claims fame long before she ever met Judge Judy. She was a real estate flipper from Arizona with a big mouth, a bigger ego, and a dangerous talent for convincing people she was smarter than she really was. For years, she had built a local reputation as the woman who could talk circles around anyone. She used to tell her clients, "Judges listen to confidence, not facts." Those words would come back to haunt her in the most public way imaginable. A few weeks before her case was scheduled to appear on Judge Judy's show, Karen recorded a TikTok video that would go viral for all the wrong reasons. Sitting in her spotless kitchen, a glass of champagne in one hand and her phone in the other, she smiled confidently at the camera and said, "I've watched every episode of Judge Judy since the 90s. She's tough, but she's predictable. I could beat her with my eyes closed." The clip ended with her laughing and winking, saying, "Watch me prove it." By the next morning, that video had been viewed over 500,000 times. People in the comments were divided, half cheering her on, half warning her that arrogance in Judy's courtroom never ends well. But Karen thrived on attention. Every comment, every share only fed her belief that she was about to make television history. Her upcoming case, Delgado versus Park, and was simple on paper. Karen was suing her former assistant, Lena Park, for defamation and emotional distress, claiming Lena had spread lies that hurt her real estate business. What Karen didn't mention was that Lena's so-called lies were screenshots and recordings of Karen threatening clients, forging signatures and bragging about cutting corners. Lena had the proof, but she also had something more powerful: patience. While Karen posted TikToks rehearsing her courtroom lines, Judge Judy's producers were quietly preparing their own surprise. Someone on the show's research team had seen Karen's viral boast and flagged it. They compiled every clip, every audio, every arrogant statement she had ever made online, including one particular recording Karen had forgotten even existed. Judy had that file waiting on her desk before Karen ever set foot in the courtroom. The morning of the trial, Karen strutted into the studio dressed in a white designer suit, hair slicked back, her heels echoing on the polished floor. She smiled for the cameras like she was arriving at a fashion shoot. "I'm ready for my close-up," she whispered to the producer who checked her mic. The bailiff looked unimpressed. Lena arrived quietly a few minutes later, wearing a simple grey blazer, clutching a folder against her chest. She didn't look like someone out for revenge. She looked like someone who just wanted to tell the truth. The tension in the waiting room was thick. Karen's phone buzzed non-stop with messages from friends watching the live feed. "You got this, Queen. Show her who's boss." She replied to one with a smirk, "I'm about to make her viral." Those would be her last confident words before the storm. When the cameras started rolling, Karen entered the courtroom like she owned it. She smiled at the audience, waved at someone in the back, and even winked at the cameraman. The crowd chuckled, not with her but at her. And then Judge Judy entered. The air changed instantly. Everyone stood. Karen's grin faltered for just a second, then returned, thinner now, more forced. Judy didn't glance at her. She simply sat down, looked at her papers, and said in that sharp tone millions knew by heart, "Let's begin." Karen's voice was smooth, almost rehearsed. "Your Honor," she began, "I've come here today to clear my name from baseless accusations made by a former employee who's been obsessed with ruining my career." Judy's eyes didn't move from the page. "Name?" she said flatly. "Karen Delgado. And you're suing for defamation, emotional distress, and—" Judy cut her off. "For $9,000, correct?" Karen nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." "Then we'll stay focused on $9,000, Judy said, finally lifting her gaze. The audience went silent. It was like watching a lioness notice movement in tall grass. Karen smirked, trying to regain her rhythm. "Of course. I'm just providing context." "Context is for documentaries," Judy replied. "This is a courtroom. Stick to facts." For the first time, Karen hesitated. She glanced at the audience, searching for a sympathetic smile. None came. Lena's turn came next. Her voice was soft but steady. She told the court how Karen forced her to send fake legal emails, how she was threatened whenever she questioned Karen's ethics, how she was told to act like a lawyer to intimidate clients. "When I refused, she called me ungrateful and fired me on the spot," Lena said. Karen rolled her eyes dramatically. "Your Honor, that's ridiculous. She's inventing stories because she's jealous." Judy raised a hand. "Ms. Delgado, you'll get your turn. Right now you'll listen." And Karen, the woman who bragged she could talk circles around Judge Judy, went silent as Lena continued, describing late nights, unpaid overtime, and psychological manipulation. Judy's pen scribbled steadily. Not once did she interrupt. Not once did she look at the audience. She was waiting, calculating. By the time Lena finished, the mood in the room had shifted completely. Karen's confident posture had melted into restless fidgeting. The audience no longer found her charming. She felt the weight of their judgment. Judy looked up. "Ms. Delgado," she said quietly, "you mentioned in your claim that you record all of your business calls. Is that true?" Karen straightened, proud again. "Absolutely. I record everything. It protects me legally." Judy's lips twitched into the faintest smile. "Good. We'll come back to that." The way she said it made the audience lean forward, sensing something was about to change. Karen didn't notice. She was too busy smirking. Outside, social media was already exploding. Fans of the show had found Karen's old video again and were reposting it with captions like, "Can't wait to see how this ends." None of them knew just how poetic her downfall would be. Judge Judy did. And she already had the recording ready. The next morning, the audience filed into the courtroom knowing they were about to witness something special. The internet had already crowned Karen Delgado the most confident guest in Judge Judy history, but confidence can rot into something uglier when it's mixed with ignorance. From the moment she took her seat, Karen's attitude filled the room like perfume that was too strong. She sat with her legs crossed, phone on silent but screen facing upward, so she could glance at it now and then. A live feed of comments from her followers was still scrolling. Little hearts, laughing emojis, fire icons. They were watching her, cheering her, waiting for the woman who said she could outsmart the judge to deliver the performance she had promised. Judge Judy entered, her expression unreadable. The room instantly fell quiet. She didn't glance at Karen or her audience. She only said, "Let's get to the facts." Then she folded her hands. The quiet was surgical, the kind that cuts ego down to size. Karen began her opening statement with a tone that teetered between confidence and condescension. "Your Honor, what we have here is a disgruntled ex-employee who decided to ruin my reputation after being let go for unprofessional behavior. I have documentation." She paused for effect, holding up a thick folder labeled evidence, to prove every single claim she made was a lie. Judge Judy's eyes didn't move. "I'll decide what's relevant," she said calmly. "Continue." Karen smiled, unbothered. "Of course, Your Honor. I just wanted to ensure that this court understands how I conduct myself as a professional. I take my business seriously." Her words rolled smoothly, like an infomercial rehearsed to perfection. The audience remained silent, their attention fixed on Judy's expression. The more Karen spoke, the less anyone believed her. Across the aisle, Lena sat quietly, fingers twisting together in her lap. She didn't look angry. She looked exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that comes from years of being gaslit by someone who always has the last word. Judy noticed. Every blink of Lena's tired eyes told its own story. Karen flipped through her folder theatrically. Here we have messages where Ms. Park admits she was overwhelmed by her duties, that she couldn't handle the pressure. She begged for another chance after I let her go. Begged. She emphasized the word like a punchline. A small smirk curled the corner of her mouth. Judy's pen tapped once against her notepad. "And do you have proof of these messages?" Karen nodded. "Of course I do. Screenshots and voice memos." "Voice memos?" Judy's eyebrow lifted slightly. "Yes, Your Honor," Karen replied proudly. "I record everything for my protection. It's how professionals stay safe in this industry." That line, meant to establish control, became the first crack in her defense. "Good," Judy said. "We'll come back to that." Her tone was mild, but her eyes were sharp, eyes of someone who had already pieced together the entire ending. Karen didn't notice. She was too focused on performing. "And let's be honest, Your Honor," she continued, voice dripping with disdain. "Ms. Park isn't exactly credible. She was late, unorganized, and emotionally unstable. I tolerated her because I believe in giving people chances, but eventually you have to cut dead weight." The audience shifted uncomfortably. Even through the cameras, the energy changed. This wasn't confidence anymore. It was cruelty wrapped in self-praise. Judy saw it too. "Miss Delgado," Judy said evenly, "you seem to enjoy talking about yourself quite a bit." Karen blinked, caught off guard. "I'm just clarifying my professionalism, Your Honor." "Then clarify it with facts," Judy replied. "Not adjectives." A few audience members stifled laughter. Karen's cheeks flushed. "I have the facts right here." "Then read them," Judy said, leaning back slightly. Without commentary, Karen hesitated. For the first time, her rhythm faltered. She began reading, stumbling over her words now that she wasn't allowed to embellish. "Ms. Park failed to respond to 2 clients, missed 3 scheduled meetings, and, Her voice trailed off as Judy raised a hand. "Stop," Judy said. "Who wrote this document?" Karen frowned. "I did." "Of course," Judy said, her tone clipped. "That explains the adjectives." She looked down at her notepad. Miss Park, you may respond. Lena spoke softly but clearly. Your Honor, those meetings she's talking about were cancelled by her, not me. I have the original email threads to prove it. She handed the papers to the bailiff, who passed them up. Judy flipped through the pages quickly, her trained eyes scanning for inconsistencies. It didn't take long. She circled a timestamp, held it up, and said, Miss Delgado, you said this email was sent on a Monday. Yes, Your Honor. Judy pointed at the date. It says Sunday. Karen's throat tightened. That must be a typo. Then your credibility has a typo, Judy said dryly. Laughter rippled through the gallery. Karen's expression hardened. Are you implying I fabricated evidence? Judy didn't even blink. I'm implying that arrogance makes people careless. Karen sat back silent for a moment. Her eyes darted to the camera, her audience. She forced a smirk, pretending to laugh it off, but the confidence had drained from her posture. She wasn't leading the room anymore. Judy was. Miss Delgado, Judy continued, you claim you're suing for emotional distress. Can you describe this distress? Karen's response came too fast. Of course. My business reputation has suffered. I've lost clients. Because of Miss Park, yes. Or because of your own video calling yourself smarter than every judge you've ever seen. Judy's question sliced through the air like glass. Karen froze. The audience gasped. For the first time, the TikTok video was mentioned out loud. Karen stammered. That was just a joke, Your Honor. Judy leaned forward slightly. So is this case if you keep lying. Her tone was razor calm. The silence that followed was heavier than anything Karen had ever felt. She realized, perhaps for the first time, that Judge Judy had already seen everything. The video, the arrogance, the pretense. And somewhere deep down, a seed of fear began to grow. She adjusted her blazer, trying to regain control. With all due respect, Your Honor, I think the Internet has taken that out of context. Judy's gaze didn't soften. The Internet didn't sue for $9,000, Miss Delgado. You did. And I suggest you remember that before this gets worse. Karen swallowed. She didn't know how it could get worse. She was about to find out. Outside the courtroom, production staff exchanged knowing glances. They'd seen this expression before, that fleeting mix of pride and panic right before Judge Judy decided to make an example out of someone. And Karen Delgado, with her viral boasts and her smug confidence, had just volunteered to be that example. The tension inside the courtroom grew heavier with each passing minute. By now, Karen's charm had dissolved into visible irritation, her confidence slowly eroding under Judge Judy's precision. But the real unraveling hadn't even begun. What came next would turn the case from a simple defamation claim into something far darker, a story about manipulation, deceit, and the arrogance that blinds a person to their own downfall. Judge Judy turned her sharp eyes to Lena Park, who sat quietly at the witness table, her hands clasped together, trembling slightly. Miss Park, Judy began, her tone softer now, you've been accused of defamation and causing emotional distress. Tell me in your own words what happened between you and the plaintiff. Lena swallowed hard and looked straight ahead. Your Honor, I worked for Ms. Delgado for almost 3 years. I started as her assistant when I was 24. I thought it was a dream job. She made everything sound glamorous. Real estate, big clients, travel, money. But none of it was real. Not the success she flaunted online, not the luxury she showed off in her videos. Karen's face tightened. She crossed her arms and exhaled loudly, but Judy didn't even glance at her. She kept her focus on Lena. Go on, Judy said. Lena nodded. At first I believed her. She told me she was teaching me how to build an empire, but over time, she started making me do things that didn't feel right. She asked me to send legal letters to tenants, pretending to be from an attorney's office. When I told her I wasn't comfortable with that, she said, and I quote, "You don't need a law degree to sound powerful, just confidence and a good printer," the audience murmured. Judy's pen paused mid-note. Did you document any of these exchanges, Miss Park? Yes, Your Honor. I kept copies of emails and texts. Lena reached into her folder, carefully pulling out printed screenshots and placing them on the desk for the bailiff to deliver. Karen rolled her eyes dramatically, whispering under her breath, "Oh, please." When Judy received the documents, she scanned through them with clinical precision. Every few lines her expression hardened. "Miss Delgado," she said, lifting one sheet, "is this your email address?" Karen didn't hesitate. "Yes, Your Honor." "But those messages are clearly edited." Judy's eyes flicked up sharply. "Edited by who?" Karen's tone was firm but defensive. "By her, obviously. She's desperate." Judy set the papers down. "Desperation doesn't usually come with timestamps that match bank transactions and call logs." The audience chuckled lightly. Karen's lips tightened. Lena continued softly. "She told me if I ever left her, she'd ruin my career. She said she'd tell everyone in the industry I stole from her." I didn't steal anything. I just wanted out. But she started posting about me on her business page, calling me a toxic failure. That's when I filed my complaint. Karen leaned forward, interrupting. Your Honor, none of that is relevant. She's trying to paint herself as some kind of victim. Judy raised a hand. Miss Delgado, let me make this clear. When I want you to speak, I'll ask. Right now you're going to listen. Her voice was calm, but the warning underneath was unmistakable. Lena took a shaky breath and continued. After she fired me, she made a video about me without naming me directly. She said, never hire assistants who can't keep secrets, especially ones who record things they shouldn't. I was terrified she'd somehow access my personal data. I didn't know what to do, so I stayed quiet, Karen scoffed. Oh, come on. Judy shot her a look so sharp it could have sliced through glass. Miss Delgado, if you interrupt again, I'll hold you in contempt of common sense. The audience laughed softly, but Judy didn't smile. Turning back to Lena, Judy asked gently, you said she mentioned recordings. Did you ever record her? Lena shook her head. No, Your Honor. I didn't, but I know she records everything. She says it's for protection, but really it's for control. Karen's eyes flashed. That's ridiculous. Judy ignored her. Control in what way? She used them to threaten people, Lena explained. She'd replay private calls to embarrass clients. Once she played back something I said in confidence about how I couldn't afford rent, just to humiliate me in front of a group of contractors. Karen's jaw clenched. That never happened. Judy leaned forward. Miss Delgado, do you deny recording private conversations? Karen hesitated. I record business calls. Everyone does. That's not what I asked, Judy said sharply. Do you deny recording private conversations? The silence stretched. Karen's mouth opened, then closed again. She didn't answer. Lena's eyes filled with tears. Your Honor, I just want her to stop lying. I'm not here for money. I just want my name cleared. She made me feel small for years. I thought working for her would change my life. It did, but not in the way I hoped. For a moment, the courtroom was utterly still. No audience chatter, no sound from the cameras. Just the quiet truth sitting heavy in the air. Judge Judy folded her hands. Her tone softened slightly. Miss Park, I believe you. And I intend to find out exactly what's been going on. Then her eyes snapped toward Karen. Miss Delgado, do you have any recordings with you today? Karen straightened in her seat, proud again. Yes, Your Honor. I have several. They'll prove that I've always been professional. Good, Judy said. Then we'll review them. Karen smiled, relieved. Finally, Judy nodded to the bailiff. Collect the phone and the files. The bailiff approached. Karen unlocked her phone confidently and handed it over, certain her recordings would clear her. But Judy wasn't done. Miss Delgado, Judy said evenly, just to confirm, you consent to these recordings being reviewed in full? Of course, Karen replied. I have nothing to hide. The audience sensed something shifting. Judy's calm tone was too deliberate, too controlled. The viewers at home would later say you could see it in her eyes. That glint of quiet satisfaction that meant she already knew how this would end, because what Karen didn't know was that one of those very recordings would expose everything. Not just her lies, but her true character, captured in her own voice. And once it played, there would be no going back. When Judge Judy said, we'll review them, the temperature in the courtroom seemed to drop a few degrees. Karen Delgado, still smiling smugly, leaned back in her chair, confident that her recordings would vindicate her. She was used to using her own words as weapons, snippets of conversations she'd stored to twist, edit, and replay when needed. But this time, she had brought them into the one place where the truth couldn't be edited. Judy tapped her pen against the desk once, twice, then looked up. Bailiff, please play the first file marked Client Call March 7th. The courtroom speakers crackled to life, filling the air with the faint sound of Karen's voice. At first it was professional, even polished. Yes, of course, I'll make sure the paperwork looks official. They'll never know the difference. The audience stiffened. Karen's eyes darted toward the speakers, then to Judy. That's out of context, she said quickly. I was talking about formatting. I meant the design of the documents. Judy's face was unreadable. Play the next one. The audio shifted to another conversation, this time between Karen and someone named Tony. Her voice dripped with confidence and contempt. Judges are easy. They like to feel smart. If you act humble and smile, they'll hand you whatever you want. A few gasps rippled through the gallery. Karen's face turned pale. Judy's pen stopped moving. Miss Delgado, that's your voice, correct? Karen nodded slowly. Yes, but good, Judy interrupted. Now let's listen to what humility sounds like. She gestured to the bailiff again. Play the next recording. The third file began with laughter. Karen's laughter. If this ever goes south, I'll just cry. Works every time. Old people hate conflict. A wave of murmurs spread through the audience. Karen's composure shattered. "That's private," she blurted out. That wasn't meant to be heard. Judy leaned forward, her tone quiet but sharp. "Then you shouldn't have bragged about manipulating the justice system on a recording you voluntarily brought into my courtroom." Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. "Do you have anything else you'd like to add before I play the last one?" Judy asked almost kindly. Karen shook her head weakly. Her earlier bravado had vanished, replaced by something new, fear. "Play it," Judy said. The final clip began, and this one silenced even the camera crew. Karen's voice came through clearly. "If this ends up in front of Judge Judy, I'll make her look like an idiot. I'll have the whole internet on my side." There was a long pause, followed by her laughing again. That same arrogant laugh the viewers had heard in her TikTok video. When the clip ended, Judy sat still for a long moment. Then she spoke, voice calm, deliberate, but filled with steel. "Miss Delgado, you recorded these conversations yourself." Karen's voice shook. "Yes, Your Honor. And you consented to their playback in this courtroom?" "Yes." "Then the evidence stands. These aren't lies. These are your words. And your words just proved that everything Miss Park said about you was true." The audience was silent. Even the bailiff seemed to stand taller. Judy leaned forward slightly, her expression now unmistakably stern. "This court is not a stage for your vanity. It's a place for truth. And you, Miss Delgado, brought your own undoing." Karen's hands gripped the edge of the table. "Please, Your Honor, that wasn't enough," Judy said sharply. "You thought you could perform here. You thought you could manipulate the system with charm and lies. But all you've done is record your own conviction." She turned to the bailiff. "That'll be all for now. Mute the audio." Karen sat frozen, her reflection visible in the polished table, the same woman who had once told 500,000 viewers she could beat the judge. Now she couldn't even meet her eyes. Judge Judy's closing words of the section landed like a verdict already half delivered. "You wanted your moment, Miss Delgado. You just got it, recorded, archived, and broadcast to the world. Let's move to judgment." The silence in the courtroom after the last recording ended was unlike anything that had come before. Karen Delgado sat motionless, staring down at the desk as if she could somehow undo the words that had just condemned her. Every second of that silence felt like a slow, cold descent from arrogance to shame. The audience didn't even dare to whisper. They knew they were witnessing something extraordinary, the collapse of a woman who had tried to make herself untouchable. Judge Judy's voice broke the silence. "Miss Delgado, you came into this courtroom demanding justice for supposed defamation. You accused another woman of destroying your reputation. But the truth is you destroyed it yourself, one recording at a time." Karen's throat tightened. "Your Honor, please, that wasn't my intention." Judy's gaze was unflinching. "Your intention was to manipulate the truth and to use this courtroom as a stage. You called me predictable, said you could beat me with your eyes closed. I'm afraid you were wrong on both counts." A ripple of quiet laughter moved through the audience. Karen's eyes darted toward them, desperate for sympathy, but found only judgment. "Miss Park," Judy continued, turning toward Lena, "you've been accused of defamation, yet all you've done is tell the truth. This court finds in your favor." She paused, letting the words sink in. "The plaintiff's claim is dismissed with prejudice." Karen's breath hitched audibly. "With prejudice? That means you can't refile this nonsense anywhere else," Judy replied sharply. "And since you admitted under oath to forging documents and recording private conversations, I'm referring this case to the state's attorney for review. They can decide how to deal with your so-called professionalism." The courtroom erupted in gasps. Karen's hand shot up instinctively, as if she could physically block the words from spreading. But they were already out, already recorded by the cameras, already destined to go viral. Judy leaned back, her tone final, calm, devastatingly controlled. "You wanted fame, Miss Delgado. Now you have it." Karen's voice cracked. "Please, Your Honor, don't—" Judy interrupted quietly. "No, Miss Delgado. You don't get to plead for privacy after selling your arrogance to the internet. Consider this your reminder that justice doesn't disappear just because you press record." The bailiff gestured toward Karen, signaling the end of her appearance. Slowly she stood, gathering the remains of her once perfect composure. Her phone sat lifeless on the table, the same device that had captured her rise, now preserving her fall. She didn't look back as she walked out, her heels echoing like punctuation marks to a story she had written herself. The camera lingered on Judge Judy, who took a final glance at Lena. "You may go. Miss Park, justice has a way of finding those who try to bury it." Lena nodded, tears streaming down her face, but this time they were tears of relief. The audience rose to its feet in applause. It wasn't the raucous clapping of entertainment. It was the quiet approval of people who had just seen arrogance meet consequence. Judy gave one small nod, the kind that carried decades of authority, and then struck her gavel once. Case dismissed. The screen faded to black, but the story didn't end there. Within 24 hours, the clips were everywhere. Karen's old boastful TikTok was now stitched beside her courtroom humiliation. Headlines read, "Influencer lawyer gets judged by her own words." Her business page shut down. Clients withdrew contracts. Her name became a cautionary tale shared by millions. Meanwhile, Lena's quiet dignity became the other half of the viral story. People commented things like, "Integrity always wins," and "Judy didn't even raise her voice, she didn't have to." In a post-show interview, Judge Judy was asked if she had known how big the case would become. She smiled faintly and said, "I didn't need to know." The truth always plays itself, and that was the final irony. The woman who lived by recordings was destroyed by her own. Every boast, every threat, every manipulation had been preserved in perfect clarity. Justice didn't need a microphone. It only needed patience. For Karen Delgado, the verdict wasn't just legal. It was eternal, a judgment rendered in her own voice. If you believe arrogance always writes its own ending, hit the like button. Comment "Truth always records" below. And subscribe for more true stories where justice doesn't just win, it echoes.